Hello there. Sable here again, covering another Week 1 match from Ubers Premier League. This time we've got King Billu versus Gastlies. This one I think is a really interesting match because of the way that these two match up in playstyle. So King Billu, very known for bringing weird stuff, aggressive stuff, definitely not afraid to try more outside the box ideas. I would expect to see some like low B through D rank Pokemon show up in his repertoire, and he's not afraid of making really aggressive clicks, like going for a hypnosis in a disadvantaged matchup or the like. So probably going to see a lot of big call out plays from him. As for Gastly's, I would really credit her with inventing the current Uber's metagame. None of the ideas are like fully brand new to her, but I think she kind of synthesized them all together in a way that people who are winning a lot are playing the way Ghastly's plays. Lots of T-Wave on Mewtwo and Mew, not being afraid to drop recover, not necessarily looking at Mewtwo and Mew as the be-all end-all win cons or like Ice Beam Wars with Mewtwo as a viable strategy for getting ahead. So I would expect to see like measured aggression from her, teams that are like very well thought out and put together to synergize instead of just focusing on the Mewtwo and Mew as the win cons. Definitely also one of the people who's been experimenting the most with Mew sets, not afraid to run no physical moves, and very big proponent that Explosion is the best move in RBY. So I would expect to see a fair bit of that from her. But let's hop into it, see what they're bringing, see what kind of strategies they're using. So Gengar from King Billu, a pretty expected lead from him. That's a classic of his in OU and Ubers, very willing to click the hypnosis on anything. Jolteon from Gastly's is interesting. So Jolteon as a lead, the idea obviously is fast T-Wave no matter what you're against. So that looks like a team that probably has a lot of boom support and physical offense behind it if you're leading off with the Jolteon. Ghastly's probably also put Sand Attack on this to ensure that it can't just be like set up fodder for an Amnesia Mewtwo or the like. So we'll see how this plays out, but Thunder Wave Hypnosis is about what I'd expect for a starting point. And this is a good spot for Ghastly's now because, well, I was going to say she could get some damage, but I guess she wants to try to ensure that Hypnosis is just not hitting first. So understandable switch out from him. And Thunderbolt, so could stay in and just take the T-Wave and go for Sing. No T-Wave here, so looks like Ghastly's is thinking of planning to sleep this with Executor. Yeah, and that makes sense because we've already got a paralyzed Gengar, makes it hard for it to sleep block, and the Chansey itself isn't that much of a threat. So gonna be a bit of 50-50s here. And she goes for sleep, and Billu gets the correct call here. But this is still like a scary spot to be in for him. You have to get a lot right to avoid getting slept here. And click Sing, predicting the switch out back to Egg. Very smart move, but Ghastly's is ahead of him on this one and gets a little more chip to encourage soft boiled, which he does. And now we've got another 50-50. So she's just going to keep putting the pressure on. And I think this is a really good strategy for Ubers, like kind of don't let your opponent get the easy sleep block with Chansey or the like, really make them work for it with more frail things like Gengar or Jinx. And she's just calling it out. She's willing to keep psychicking and calling this at this point after a couple of missed sleep powders. And now she's just going to get it because now that the Gengar has taken a psychic, it can't sleep block anymore. So now she's up. Oh, never mind, but probably we'll just go for it again. And this one sticks, so now it's pretty hard to be in King Bulu's shoes because if you switch out and get stun spored, you're really behind. If you don't, you could end up behind as Ghastly switches out. Now this Mew's definitely going to T-Wave. I know her. Yep. So immediately my thought is Bulu's team is like a more standard older team with like Gengar, Chansey, Snorlax, Mewtwo, Mew +1, and the Mewtwo probably running Amnesia 2 attacks recover. On Ghastly's side, Jolteon Executor Mew with T-Wave on Mew doesn't give that much info, but I'm going to guess her team is more aggressive than his in this game. As for what the Mew set is, could really be anything. Swords Dance is up. Swords Dance T-Wave. Oh, it's a barrier too. Okay, so now she has Boom. She's going to use it, but she doesn't seem to. Or she might just Swords Dance to +4 and see if she gets ahead because of some paralysis before booming, but that's pretty risky because then teammates have a hard time following up. Okay, so T-Wave, EQ, Swords Dance, probably last move is going to be just Soft Boiled, but it could still be like Boom or something. We don't really know until it takes a hit. And she's going to try to just break through this on paralysis and crits. Definitely a really scary spot to be in for Gastlies. Doesn't seem like she has anything that can wall this Mewtwo, so it's just going to be about breaking through or PP stalling 16 Ice Beams without taking too much damage to the team. And he's finally maxed out on boosts on Billu's side, so we might finally see it start throwing out some attacks, in which case this Mew may not be long for this world if the Mewtwo gets a turn. And the Mewtwo's not getting turns. This is dangerous. Okay, so she did have Boom the whole time and she rips it as soon as she gets in range. That's a very smart hold from her to not immediately just throw the explosion then, because at +6, Mew is pretty likely, you know, you need like 1 or 2 full paralysis from Mewtwo or 1 crit at the right time into Boom, and then you've handled it anyway. So really good patience from her. A lot of people would have just gotten 6-0'd by that barrier 2 right there, but not her. And now a Slowbro comes out versus Mewtwo. Scary spot because the Mewtwo could have any move at all, but if it doesn't have T-Bolt, then this is pretty okay for the Slowbro. And as usual for Gastlies, she's got T-Wave Mewtwo, gets a little bit ahead, now probably going to duck out to Jolteon. And Billu missing the read here and not clicking Amnesia, so this is going to be a quick force out. And now it's really hard for him with Slowbro paralyzed, with Gengar paralyzed and almost dead, with Chansey asleep, and now a Tauros getting in for free. It just seems really hard for him to come back. Gengar, Slowbro, and then if it's like Snorlax and Mew is the last two, then there's really not a good Tauros switch in, especially to T-Bolt Tauros. Click Surf, expecting the Tauros to get out, doesn't get it right, and Gastly's unfortunately misses Hyper Beam, so okay. Slowbro paralyzes anyway, so kind of equalizes out, but it barely lives that and gets rest off. I don't know if rest is the play, but I guess when you're this far behind, you kind of have to do things like that and try to preserve some pieces. But yeah, you can't really wall Tauros. You can't really slow down Tauros because the chances that it crits you on a rest loop are just too good. Okay, so he has a Tauros and not a Snorlax, and then the last will be a Mew. That's really unfortunate. Taking T-Bolt 10% para on entry basically means this game is over. I can't see a way that he can win the game from here. Snorlax comes in, preserving the Tauros. And now I think Gauss is just going to trade down hits. Gengar can't come in because this almost certainly has Earthquake. There's just not really much room. And attempts to call the boom, but there's not really too much reason she has to boom. In Ghastly's spot, like if you just Hyper Beam the Tauros, it's going to kill anyway. And even if the Gengar comes in, it's paralyzed, so it's not really a threat. Trying to pivot on Earthquake. Okay, so willing to just take a 50-50 with Slowbro here and hope that you get it with the Surf. But Jolteon comes in, and now again, just like everything is paralyzed except for the Slowbro, which is tied with Snorlax on speed. I don't really see many ways out for him. King Billu's just really on the back foot. I think this game 1 is pretty decisively over at this point if she just keeps hitting. Yeah, so some bad luck at the end, the Tauros para and whatever else, not like the greatest thing, but ultimately I think this game was already really, really far behind once she sniped the barrier too. I don't think that King Billu had that many options to win this, and now Mewtwo's just going to come in and clean up. And because it's T-Wave Mewtwo, that means this Mew is not going to get a chance for free setup or anything. I actually want to go back a bit because I really liked here that Gastly's didn't choose to take this KO with Jolteon and give up a chance for Mew to set up and maybe get lucky on full paralysis. By doing it this way instead with the Mewtwo coming out, she's ensuring that there's a faster Pokemon with no chance of missing the move that can just T-Wave the Mew and then probably use self-destruct or whatever else and ensure that Tauros cleans up for free. So very safe play by her. Very good job confirming that the game will end. And Snorlax comes in. You can just boom here, and even if you hit Gengar, you don't really care because it's a free KO. So now Mewtwo will come back in. It's not like Mew is going to hard switch into Mewtwo or Tauros and just give up the game like that. So you take another KO and you just keep pushing from there. And just as a reminder, she still has a pretty healthy Executor too. So like this Mew really is not getting anywhere from here while paralyzed. So goes to the egg as expected. Now the Mew is going to have to play games with predicting the boom turn. One missed predict in this game is already over anyway. And there's not really any pressure from egg to hurry it up. You can just sit here and click psychic and look for drops. Yeah, I think he was a bit premature, King Billu, to go to the Gengar. I don't really think that that could have worked at that point. You have to get the Mew down to at least like 50 before that's going to be a thing, or get a couple Swords Dances off so that she feels pressured to actually boom it. Either way, it was a pretty impossible situation to get out from there, so kind of went as expected. Looking at the teams really quick, so on Ghastly's side, T-Wave Mew, T-Wave Mewtwo. My guess is no recovery on either of them. I would think that this Mewtwo is probably Thunder Wave, Psychic, Boom, and then either one more attack or Amnesia, but probably just another attack like Blizzard. For Mew had Earthquake Explosion and no recovery. And then Tauros Snorlax to come in and clean up after the other 4 Pokemon spread some status through the team. So like I mentioned before, a very coherent physical offense team. On King Billu's side, I think Gengar plus Slowbro is a little more classical. Like, this is almost like older sample teams, except you'd see that Tauros switched out for a Snorlax because the wisdom used to be that you bring Chansey and Snorlax on every single game. Not so much here, though. Gengar plus Slowbro is like fine. You can definitely play with these 6, but I do think it's kind of, I don't know if the Chansey fits super well in my estimation, or if the Mewtwo and Mew sets work that well with the way that the Slowbro was played. So maybe the Chansey could have been an egg, maybe the Mewtwo and Mew could have done different sets, but ultimately just got behind early and couldn't get back into it. So on to game number 2. And let's see. A Hypno lead from Billu. So this is some of that weird stuff that I mentioned. Hypno in Ubers is really interesting. You've got some stuff there because he's got Submission, you've got Hypnosis and T-Wave on one Pokemon that is also faster than Egg. But I think one of the more appealing things about it is it has Counter, which makes it able to fight Tauros and lead and really scare Tauros off of just clicking Slam Beam into it. Hypno versus Gengar, just like any sleeper matchup, it's just one is faster than the other. Hypno can probably just go for T-Wave, and if Gengar misses Hypnosis, you have immense pressure on it with Psychic, so it's pretty close to a 50-50. I think just because Gengar's accuracy is pretty bad and getting T-Waved is horrific for it, but definitely like a little Gengar favored. And Gastly's connects right away, and the Hypno stays asleep, so kind of invalidated this so far, but Hypno's fairly bulky. There's a chance it wakes up in a couple turns, and then maybe there's another sleep war. But just getting out to Mewtwo, Gengar's obviously going to be forced out here, goes right to Mew again, might take a T-Wave. Yeah, so this time Billu's got a T-Wave Mewtwo, and probably going to get out before this Mew throws a T-Wave back at it. So Hypno in is a chance for Gastlies to maybe switch to something more physically offensive or set up if this Mew has more physical offense behind it. And as Snorlax comes in, the Hypno wakes up, so it's going to be right back to Mew. Hypno doesn't really do that much to Mew, but maybe you can wear it down a bit with repeated Psychics. Okay, Headbutt is weird. I would have never guessed that Billu put Headbutt on this. As you can see by the 11% damage there, maybe not the most effective move. I don't think you're going to Paraflinch this Mew before it gets T-Wave off on the Hypno, but we'll see how this goes. Another Headbutt. And another Paralyze. So, maybe there's a chance, but you still need like 6 more of these. And the T-Wave comes through, and now that strategy is just dead. And now, like, I'm pretty sure Psychic does more at this point than Headbutt. But still going for headbutts even without the option to flinch. I think you need to go for a psychic drop here if you're going to play this, because if you drop the Mew, it'll become slower than Hypno again and force it out. But Billu just doesn't want to play that game, clicks a couple more headbutts, and then goes hard Cloister, gets T-Waved on entry, and the Mew is revealed to be Psychic T-Wave. Psychic T-Wave soft-boiled means that it is almost certainly Explosion last to stop Mew from turning it into setup fodder. And just all of a sudden, this game looks awful for Billu. You've got a completely walled out Hypno that's paralyzed. You've got a Mewtwo that's afraid to come in on this Mew. And sleep is still open for Gastlies to get later. So Mewtwo's going to come in, take a Psychic, and now inevitably it's going to get T-Wave boomed if it stays in. Yeah, it goes for Amnesia. Could be Amnesia Barrier, could be Amnesia 2 attacks. We'll see what he clicks on this turn. Okay, so Blizzard, and if Gastlies doesn't paralyze, then okay. Paralyze happens. I'm sure she clicked Boom there. But not lucky this time. Ultimately, it's just a +2 Mewtwo at 58%, so this shouldn't be too hard to force out. Sending in Cloister is interesting there. That says to me that she thinks that this is T-Wave Amnesia Blizzard Self-Destruct, which would make a lot of sense given what we've seen so far. But that says it's obviously walled by Cloister, so if that's the case, then she's perfectly safe doing this, even though Clamp is going to take forever to chip through it. And the fact that he gets out here tells me that's probably the case. Because you want to get the T-Wave either way. If not, that's a pretty interesting Clamp there. I guess it does a decent amount of damage to Hypno, and you don't want to get hit with Hypnosis. So maybe she feels a bit locked into that. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. And Mewtwo coming back in might suggest that it has Recover or something of the like, might suggest that it has a second move to hit the Cloister with, but what are his last 3 that he has nothing to come into Cloister with? I guess, like, the Mew set maybe isn't ideal for this. Yeah, just based on switching back and forth into the clamps, I want to talk about the teams for a second at this point. That says to me that his last 3 are all things that don't deal with Cloister well, meaning either slower, or it's like a Mew without T-Wave and with only like weaker physical attacking moves like Earthquake, or like a Tauros without T-Bolt, maybe. But even then, I think you just have to go to something at this point and try. But on Ghastly's side, Gengar, Cloister, there's probably an Executor and a Mewtwo, but maybe it's just another physical attacker and a T-Wave Mewtwo. A little bit low on T-Wave so far from her, so maybe it's just 2 T-Wavers, but I would think Executor and a T-Wave Mewtwo combined with Cloister Snorlax seems like good enough pressure. I'll be interested to see what's behind this, but I think that Billu's just going to end up taking lots of chip, trying to run these clamps down because she's already down to just 6. So there's a Zapdos, and I guess he just didn't want to take the chip until he had to. And Ghastlies gets out to Gengar, expecting to just fight the Zapdos with that, expecting Billu to stay in, which is pretty reasonable. Gets a bit lucky with that Nightshade, and now he's just lost the Hypno. If Mewtwo comes in, like, she could just immediately boom it. She can go for Nightshade and see if it paralyzes once and then throw out a boom. Yeah, she's just gonna farm through all these Pokemon with Gengar, and I think that Billu got a little bit too conservative with the plays earlier on, and now Gengar's just tearing through everything. So Mewtwo will get sacked. Not sure about that over sacking the 21% Cloister. Maybe that was more reasonable. Oh, and he's got Wrap in the back. This is so bad. This is just... So Billu's whole team is kind of just farmed by Gengar after the... If the Hypno loses Sleep War, from what I've seen. This has to be like an Earthquake Mew or something, right? Maybe not. Wow, his team might be really, really, really weak to Gengar. So D-Knight just going for Blizzard, not wrapping this Executor, just going straight for it. Calling Gengar coming in, but now it's working out for Billu, getting a lot of damage on the egg. And Mewtwo comes in. I'm gonna guess this is like T-Wave Blizzard or something. So Cloister's not going to be able to deal with that at 21%. Zapdos, D-Knight aren't going to be able to deal with that. Mew could just die if this gets a free Blizzard, but gets a T-Wave, now probably going to get out and save it to ensure that the D-Knight can't sweep. Yeah, and now there's nothing you can really do, like Gastlies can bluff Explosion and click Psychic here. There's not really a reason for her to click Explosion that early, so again, Billu I think being a little premature with that, but you've got D-Knight and Zapdos and back to get into here anyway, so it makes sense. Going for T-Wave is odd. I would think you have to click Wrap. Yeah, this is unwinnable, I think, at this point. Even if Mew comes in, I'm guessing this Mewtwo has Boom, has Blizzard, something that'll do a lot of damage here. And immediate Boom. So now you just send in Cloyster and Snorlax, click Boom with both, and this game is over. Even if he catches one with the Zapdos, wouldn't really matter. She's just got a full-on Boom spam. It's a 6 Booms team. Pretty impossible for Billu to stop at this point when already behind. So really well played by Gastlies. A pretty quick and clean 2-0. I liked her team on this one, just running that much Boom and just getting ahead and then starting to rip Booms over and over. Pretty good strategy in Ubers. Especially once the Gengar just got a couple of free KOs, this became pretty unwinnable. Billu's team, I can't say I really love here. You got like this semi-wrap core with D-Knight plus Cloyster. I feel like if you're going to go for wrap, commit to it and put a Victory Bell in there so you have more status spreading. From what it seems, it's T-Wave Mewtwo, but maybe not T-Wave Mew. And the Mew didn't seem able to hit the Gengar either, so I'm really wondering what this Mew set was. But ultimately, I just think like Zap, Cloy, D-Knight, all very weak to a Mewtwo that actually has some attacking moves and isn't a mono attacker. Hypno, not the strongest lead, and it's the sole sleeper on this team. Again, no egg here. I think you're just kind of relying on a lot to go right to get enough status off to win this game. So despite the good RNG, I just think that this was a huge team builder matchup differential. And ultimately, King Billu couldn't overcome it in this one, and Gastlies continues to be a really strong Ubers player. So that's about it for this one. I don't really have much else to add. I've decided I'm going to start releasing these as they are and just like not try to mess around with background music or anything. I just find it distracting personally. So as usual, just let me know how you find these, if you have any comments, any thoughts. Maybe people do want background music. I don't know if I'm a big fan, but I'll consider it. But leave me any comments, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.